don't have a thingy. All right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming to our Leather 101 seminar. A couple of important announcements. One, today is a Big D's Double Points Day. Two, leather care. Surprisingly, it's 10% off today. And three, there are raffle tickets because we have
Four.
total, including
Four bags.
including there.
Back there is the 25 buckets.
Okay.
Oh.
Thought you were doing one of your raffles back there.
No, we're just.
Oh.
Oh, here.
Okay. All right. Before raffles, my name is Lisa Goretta. I'm an expert because I've done this for a long time. With everything in horses, we're always learning in that. I say it is a mystery because when I was much younger, almost all saddles that you purchased looked like that. They were all light, they were all fairly thick leather, you could put oil on them, they had suede on them, which you had to be careful with. This is the Steuben, weighs a ton. I always said with a Steuben tree you could do everything but run over it with a truck and it would still hang in there. Leather care and leather products are more sophisticated and more complicated. However, it is important because maintaining your tack in proper condition makes it look great and it makes it last longer. And there is probably no one sitting here that says, oh, saddles and bridles are really inexpensive. It's the other way around. If you want your leather to last a long time, it does need proper maintenance, just like skin. There are a few basics that over time, if you adopt them, then the process is not so overwhelming. We have a tremendous selection of leather care products here. Many of them do the same things, some of them are particularly unique, but everybody finds their own grouping that they're comfortable with, the tools that they use to clean their tack, hoping they actually clean their tack. All of that is fine. Work with what works best for you. So it doesn't have to be overwhelming. You will need, if you're going to take reasonable care of your tack, whether you are an English rider or a Western rider, is use of a pH balanced leather cleaner. Because if you have something that is too acidic, if it's too aggressive, you spend all your time putting the emollients back into the leather. There are times that you need something that is aggressive, but for daily care, a pH balanced leather cleaner. Pick your aggressive product carefully. Avoid using what I call the old wives' tales of leather care. Well, if it's mildew, clean it with ammonia. If it's got too much grease on the leather, use vinegar on it, which is great in the salad, but it's not so great on your even apple vinegar. If it's new and you want it to break in quickly, stick it in your bathtub and run the shower on it for 20 minutes. It's right up there with my helmet is dirty, I'm going to put it in the dishwasher. Not a good idea. You will need a leather conditioner, which is not the same thing as oil. Oh, we saved these seats for you.
This is the only seat.
Oh, and now you worked out.
I promise I won't bite,
I think that would have to be reset.
but we're looking at the other products right now. Okay, leather conditioner, we'll go back to that. You're fine, welcome. You might want to take your jacket off, it gets warm in here. Leather oil is not used as often as people think, but generally speaking, for new tack, it is a good idea to have leather oil. Avoid buying a gallon of it unless you're planning on leaving it to your rest of your family and your offspring. Because you won't go through that much unless you set up a side job of doing leather care. You will need a bucket. You will need clean water. A dedicated sponge and some dedicated towels. If you do just that basic stuff, you can get by with your leather. Now, after that, everybody has their little secrets and their extra tools And, I keep, in my kit, I have gloves, which I always have great intention of using, and often remember to put them on. Old toothbrushes, both for getting into crevices and dirty spots, or in some cases boot polish because I can't find my dauber, or if I'm trying to gently rough up suede. Sometimes you use tools that don't look like they belong in there at all. This is a cute little face curry comb, but it's rubber and it's very soft, and actually it works pretty well if I'm trying to bring the nap up on suede gently in a circular motion. So you'll find the things that work best for you. But the bucket, the clean water, changed frequently, the sponges, dedicated cleaning oil, and a couple of towels. There.
Question was asked about hot water, warm water, cold water.
Actually, hard water versus soft water is almost more important than temperature. Hard water is, if you have saddle pads that you absolutely love that are in a beautiful dark color, and you have really hard water and you wash your saddle pads in that, they will fade. Hard water is tough on leather, just like it is on your hands. So ideally, if you have really hard water and you clean your tack in the barn, when I have been in that circumstance, I have kept a couple of gallons of spring water or distilled water to use it, because the hard water is tough on it. I like warm water, but it's mostly because I like putting my hands in warm water. Cold water works. You can go camping and clean your tack. Hot water is fine, not as hot as your shower, although it does help the pores of the leather open a little bit, but it also tends to make you think, oh, well, this is warm and that would be nice, so I'll get this really wet, and that is not good. One, because it takes a while to let the leather dry naturally, so you're tempted to either put it by the radiator, bad. Use the hairdryer, bad. Put it out in the sun, well, if it's got mildew, not so bad. But that also is, the UV rays are challenging for the leather. So, personally, warm is awesome. Cold works. Hot, avoid. Let's see. So, gather your tools. Once you set up what you're going to have in your leather care kit, I keep it in the bucket, and I have it covered. So if it's in my tack room and the tack room is dusty, I don't have yuck all over my tools, but they're there when I want them. I have a smaller set for when I go to a horse show. Prepare the items that you are going to be working on. It's much easier to do this in a controlled manner than start the project and 3 days later you're still trying to figure out where that part of the bridle that you took apart was, which takes me to the bridles. If you're going to take the bridles, if you're just doing daily maintenance, wiping it off, you do not have to take your tack apart. But periodically, or when it's new and you're prepping it, you really need to bring it down to pieces parts. Now, when I was a kid, we had in ground lessons periodically, I think to keep us quiet, but we would have contests, and they would put piles of pieces parts on the table. And the contest was for your team to pull the parts out and find matching pieces and assemble the bridles. And that team that won, of course, maple sugar cakes, as I recall. There are a lot of pieces. If you are cleaning tack that you already use, a good thing to have is a pen and a piece of paper and mark down the adjustments on your bridle so it's not frustrating when you're putting it back together. Particularly if your bridle should not be put together asymmetrically, but if it is, if it's 4 holes up on one side and 3 holes up on the other, for whatever reason that might be, write that down. Okay. If you are cleaning a saddle, whether it's an English saddle or a Western saddle, this is the time to do your safety check. Unbuckle anything that can be unbuckled, remove anything that can be removed so that you are cleaning those things independently, whether it's your stirrup leathers, rigging on your Western saddle, pommel straps, whatever you use on a trail ride that's attached to your saddle, take all of that off. Look for loose stitching, weakened areas. Leather is not, unless you are using a synthetic saddle, and even then, probably not, it is not everlasting. Our goal is to keep it strong, healthy, and useful for as long as you want it, and still have some life in it if you want to sell it. The most difficult thing in buying used tack in today's environment is that it did not have the care that you want it to have had. It either was not taken apart, it was not prepped well in the first place, things have stretched. So it is very important that you actually do this same safety check. Look for weakened areas, look for loose stitching, look for anything that squeaks that should not be squeaking, before you consider purchasing anything that is used. As I just said, if you are taking anything apart that you are already using and you are going to really clean it, make sure that you make your life easier when you are putting it back together and make adjustments, whether it's martingales or halters aren't too tough to figure out, at least it's a small range of things, but it makes it a lot easier to assemble it when you have everything laid out to put it back together. First step, you'll notice that I say damp a lot. Enemy of leather in some cases is water, because we all tend to want to wash it first. Step one is take a damp sponge or towel and wipe off the item that you are going to clean. So in this case, I wipe all the dust and dirt off of it. I'm not going to be cleaning it quite yet, but start with that. Then start with clean water, warm if you like it, that's fine. Use a small amount of product. Use a small amount of cleaner, either pH balanced or soap. If you are a fan of glycerin saddle soap, that's fine, but be careful, because if you use too much water, it tends to dull the finish. It tends to have you put too much product on, which just takes that much longer to get the excess product off. So in general, whatever you are doing with your tack, less is more. Better to do 3 coats than 1 and find out you have too much. Okay? Avoid excess water after you have wiped everything off and you are applying the product to the leather. Let it dry for a little while and then wipe off any excess residue. Why? Because it clogs the pores. 2, depending upon the product, it can change the color of your stitching or change the color of your leather when you're not interested in having that happen. Use a dedicated sponge for each process. So if you are going to be oiling new tack, do not try to use the same sponge that you are using for cleaning. So you need to have at least 2 sponges in your kit. I have many towels. My favorite towel for wiping and cleaning leather is an old washcloth that's terry cloth, because it has a little natural nap to it. So if you wring it out really well, 1, you're not getting too much water on. 2, you know right away if you're putting too much product on it. And 3, you can get in less product, more elbow grease is kind of the best way of thinking about that. If it's a multi-step product, multi-step cleaning, so you're cleaning a brand new piece of tack and you're going to either be putting conditioner on it or oil. We'll get into a little more of that in a moment. Allow time for natural drying, which goes back again to try not to use too much water. There are basically 5 steps in total. Collect your gear, take your stuff apart, do your general cleaning, and before you stop, make sure that you get into all the little nooks and crannies, all the little hard to reach places. On a Western saddle, that's going to be up in here. Find the end of the rigging and make sure that you are looking in your safety check that all of the rivets are in good shape. On an English saddle, that's looking at the stirrup bar, the flaps, inspecting and cleaning the billets. You will see, now this is a used saddle, and it was never really conditioned properly in the first place, which is why you have that discoloration. It never had the initial prepping that it should have had. Fortunately, it's a good saddle, so it's cosmetic. Anything that needs to get into a nook or cranny, I usually have Q-tips, and again, that old toothbrush. Yes, ma'am?
Can you make those spots go away?
We'll get into that.
Okay.
The question was, can you make the spots go away? 100% no, but there are a lot of things that you can do to help it.
Okay.
All right. I usually have, it's a screwdriver for glasses screws, because it's really, really tiny, so that I can get in there if I have anything that's tooled, for example. If I've cleaned it out carefully and I can't get in there, I'll take a small blunt and gently, screwdriver, and gently get in there and clean that out. Unfortunately, in Ohio, we have 2 seasons, winter and mildew. Mildew is a terrible thing once it gets into leather, because if your leather is living and your leather is well nourished, it is also a perfect environment in a damp basement, tack room, garage for mildew. It is a challenge to get rid of it and keep it. Fortunately, nowadays there are some nice products that are mildew killers. This is FX Leather Combi, and it has in it, in addition, this is their standard combi, which is a fairly aggressive cleaner, so it does require the use of conditioner afterwards. Hello, wake up.
Did you hit the remote there?
I hit the remote. Oh, I put the FX on it. Did I turn it off?
Towards the top.
Yes, I did. Oh dear. Backing up. Not backing up.
We're gonna get to that next one.
Did it have? How about that? How about that? Oh, how about that? Go to recent.
Oh, it worked. Oh, there you go.
You are instrument of the devil. Alright. Anyway, back to, okay, you want one page. Here we are, mildew. Mildew killer. There are some good whites, don't fall over. This is a fairly new product. It's a leather wipe. I'm not a huge personal fan of leather wipes because I would rather take it apart and clean it. But if you're in a hurry or you have a particular problem, these leather wipes are particularly formulated for mildew. Taking that away from me, good plan. Okay, once you have cleaned your leather, if it is dry, if it feels, if your leather was your skin and you thought, this feels dry to me, your leather's saying the same thing. It needs to be fed in order to keep the fibers in the leather, the integrity of those strong. Over wetness, over dryness, mildew to a certain extent can weaken the fibers of that, and that's when you get breakage, cracking. So applying conditioner, again, I said early on, better small quantities, multiple times, than one large glop applied in order to get it done quickly. Hardly ever works. Ends up being more work and more time than you had invested in the first place. So apply conditioner sparingly. You can put conditioner on all surfaces of tack, but beware of any area where you are going to sit, particularly if your leather is dark. If the tack is brand new or excessively dry, that's the time that you get out your quantity of leather oil. Be careful when you're buying oil if you have a light colored piece of tack that you want to keep light, because some of them have a little bit of dye in it to naturally darken the leather. So I would also say use it in a small, do a spot check first. And with all new tack, read the small instruction manual or scan the QR code that takes you to their website and look at what the manufacturer's instructions for taking care of that particular product are. Why? One, because you have a lot of leathers that are very color specific. And two, many of the leathers today are laminates. So if you, for example, over oil a laminate, and you will eventually have a negative effect on the glues that are used to hold that together. So some manufacturers have very specific instructions. For example, Bates says do not oil this product if you're using their Lux leather because it's got a specific tanning agent in it that makes the leather grippy, and they have a specific conditioner that helps keep the leather grippy, and if you put oil on it, you will wreck the grippiness and you will wreck the leather, and you will void your warranty. Therefore, it's very important as we're keeping track of what we're spending on our passion of horses and horseback riding, to keep the lifespan of your leather as long as possible. Clean all metal fittings. That's a part that's often ignored. It's metal, therefore it does not need any care. Not true. Especially silver. If it's decorative silver, then you have several options of silver cleaners. If you're using bits, you have several options of silver cleaners. But remember, at the end of the process, you are putting that bit in the horse's mouth. Therefore, if I have something that is never going to touch the horse's mouth, I'll use a silver wipe. Also, if I have decorative silver on a Western saddle that someone has asked me to clean, then I'll use a wipe. If I'm doing a bit that's going to go back in the horse's mouth, I use Springer's diamond paste because it is non-toxic. So although I clean it and then I wash it before I put it in the horse's mouth, this is what I personally always use on bits. Then, after you have cleaned everything and you've allowed some natural time for the product to dry, then reassemble and store properly. If you've spent the better part of a morning cleaning tack, then the time that you spend putting it away, if it has a cover, putting a cover on it. If it does not have a cover, maybe putting a towel over it will make your job easier and easier and easier as you go along. If you establish a habit of keeping your equipment relatively clean, it will come back to you tenfold in the amount of time you get to spend with your horse, and you don't have to worry about it. It's always my goal. I find tack cleaning to be very relaxing. If I'm going to do something new like oil the saddle, I'll put a piece of cardboard down and I might be watching the news while I'm doing it, but I always find it very relaxing. It's a project that I can start, it's dirty, and in the end, it's clean. I put it away, sometimes that's the best thing I've accomplished in my day. So, people look at, oh, you know, I clean my tack once a month. Makes me cry a little inside. If you're only going to wipe it off, then leather wipes are fine. If you're really getting in there and cleaning, my personal preference, as I said, everybody has their own system, and as long as you have a system, that's fine. I would rather be able to take it apart, use a sponge, know what I'm putting on, know where it's going. But yes, I have been known at a horse show to do a quick wipe off. Won't lie. Before we go into more details, are there questions so far other than what can we do to those spots?
Could you hop back to the mildew situation? And I know that's oftentimes unpreventable, but is there something that can kind of, you mentioned the one product that is good to utilize when you do have mildew, and is it more helpful to, as a resistant then for it to come back? Okay, so the question pretty much is how do you deal with mildew once you have it, and how can you help it not come back? That's pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. And
Yeah,
I know you
okay.
mentioned a particular
Yes.
product.
Well, I'll show you two products. I'll add another one that is not part of leather care, but and that is desiccant powder. So you can get those. Not to advertise Home Depot, but that's where I get mine. It's a small bucket, and you take the lid off of it. So if you are storing your tack, I mean, ideally, find a spot to store your tack where it's not, where that's not as conditioned. But since it's Ohio, we have winter and we have mildew season, and those are our two options. Storing your tack in the trailer is really not a good idea, unless your trailer lives in a climate-controlled garage, and not many people do. The stuff that you cleaned and put away and have all ready for the horse show, you are going to be disappointed a month later when you go in there and take it out, because it will either have had so many temperature fluctuations that what was nice and nourished and supple is now, because of the temperature differences, or it's been so moist that everything now has a coat of mildew on it. We'll say it's the latter and you have the coat of mildew on your tack. After you've calmed down, I would use one of two things. If it's not a huge problem, the Moss leather wipes with mildew inhibitor are a very good product. I generally, because as I've said multiple times now, take everything apart and clean it. My preference is to use the FX Combi, which is plus serum, so that's Combi Plus, the regular. Turn anything off again. The regular Combi is a fairly aggressive cleaner, which means it will strip out dirt and horse oils and sweat. But after that, it does need, it's like using an astringent on your face. After that, you need to put lotion on your face. After that, you need to put conditioner on your leather. The Combi Plus has a mold inhibitor. And if you use it regularly in the summertime, it really does inhibit it. If you have the problem already, this is the case for another dedicated sponge. After you have cleaned it, go over it, especially in, mildew likes to hide in all the little dark spots that are a pain in the neck to reach when you're cleaning. So you really need to use a small sponge. All right, I'm going to bring out my two good tools. My small sponge for cleaning. I have another small sponge for oil. I have another small sponge for anything that I'm putting on that's a little more aggressive. So I keep my cleaner in the sponge, keep the aggressive product with a separate sponge, and my favorite is the retired washcloth. Now, I can squeeze water out of that, which means it's too wet for me to use on tack. I wring it out really, really, really well. So the first thing that I would do if I were cleaning the saddle or prepping the saddle is to just wipe it off. Now I'm not soaking it, I'm just getting the external dirt. I would do the same thing if I were doing a riding boot. Now, almost killed me to not clean these a few times while riding in them, but I did. I'm going to save this for this. So the first thing you do, and actually in this kind of a riding boot, for everyday use, if you stay up with it, all you need to do is wipe it off that way. It's not soaked, you've gotten the dirt off of it. Now, the horse, what I refer to as the horse ick, the oils, the dirt, the sweat from the side of your horse is not going to regularly come off if you just wipe it off with a wet or damp or a dry towel. That's when you need to use the cleaner. Right? So once you have mildew in your life with tack, it is a lifelong pursuit of getting rid of it. I would like to say, oh yes, just spray this and it's done, but it's not in our climate. If you are looking at a used piece of tack that is such a deal, but it's got mildew on it, just know that the fibers have been weakened a little bit, and it's going to be a lifelong pursuit of chasing it. Right? Let's see, there's another question. Yeah.
Okay, so when you're cleaning and conditioning your saddle on the finished surfaces, like underneath the stirrup on the side that's not finished,
Right.
do you scrub that too?
I do.
Okay, and put conditioner?
Okay, so very good question. So when I'm cleaning something and I do the underside, we'll use actually here, let's see, this one's easier to see. All right, particularly with new tack that has a color to it. This is a pair of calfskin laminated leathers. The lamination of the calfskin is over nylon. Plus side, doesn't stretch. Plus side, very strong. Minus side, this is very thin. So you never want to put oil on a thin laminated surface. Only put conditioner. And you put it sparingly so that you keep it nourished but not soaked. Because the part that you're actually soaking is the seam, at which point it crawls underneath and into the nylon. With a saddle like this, you have a finished surface and you have a raw surface. This surface will take oil. This surface will take some oil, but you have to be careful because on this surface, if you put too much oil on it, you will wear it. Okay? Any surface that is not oilable is conditionable, because the pore structure of the conditioner is not so much that it soaks in totally. If you put conditioner on leather that's really dry, it will soak up there. You might put 10 coats on it. When it starts to slow down in the way that it's being absorbed, then that's the time that you stop. And better with new tack to, if you're oiling it, oil it, go away, have lunch, go ride another horse, come back and oil it again. You might put several coats on it. And this saddle is a Steuben, and I keep it basically for this lecture because I can prep it as much as I want. But see here, before this was given to me, it had mildew on it. So I keep this saddle for demonstration purposes. So I can clean this either with the wipes or the Combi Plus, and I can get rid of this. Because this saddle lives in my office, it probably won't come back, but I haven't touched it since we did this lecture last year because I wanted it to come back. So, right? So any surface and up into the corners, up into the crevices, all of that needs to be cleaned and all of that needs to be conditioned. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Can you use that with a spray and then, spray it up?
Okay, so the question is, can you spray it up in there? Yes, you can. The issue with spraying, if you really can't get in there, better to spray it than not, but you're putting a lot more product than you want to put on it. So it's a little bit overkill if you just spray it in there, but sometimes you can't reach up in there, and then yes, particularly with mildew, it's better to spray up in there. But I don't like things running down the rivulets that I have to then even out.
Just to get some up there,
Yep.
and then you can wipe in there.
Yes, you can apply with the sprayer and then finish with the sponge. Absolutely, or the rag. Okay.
What about billets? Condition or oil billets?
Billets. All right, so billets are stitched. Some billets are chrome leather, so you have an unfinished surface. If you oil it, because it is a piece of your tack that only has pressure on it all the time. When it's doing its job, it's got pressure on it. If you put pressure on it, it's going to stretch. So I would condition billets to minimize stretching and also nourish the fibers and keep them in condition. So everything in leather should be pliable, basically, but not limp. So billets, riggings, conditioner, seats of saddles, also conditioner. All right, so let's talk a little bit about saddle construction, because most people don't really know what's under the hood. A Western saddle is a fitting process that's a combination of the width of the tree and the pads that you put under it, because they do not have, there are a couple of exceptions to this, but in general, Western saddles do not have panels. English saddles, on the other hand, do have panels. And the panel construction can be air inside, it can be foam inside, or it can be flocking inside. If you consider the thickness of the leather on the panel. Because the panel is soft, this material is pretty thin. So you don't want to have it dry and crack, and you don't want to have it soggy, because if it's soggy, you've almost always corrupted the integrity of the material inside. Foam does not like to have oil on it. Flocking definitely does not like to have oil on it. This particular flocked panel, this is a flocking hole, and this is a flocking hole. If you have a foam insert in here, or an air panel, and that's an air bladder, that's a specific closed surface. If you have less expensive, I'll say that, less expensive foam, then it tends to have more open pores. If you have more expensive foam, like latex, which is a natural foam, then the pore structure is smaller. It still does not want to have oil on it, but if you have large pores in your foam, the oil will seep in there, and then your saddle will get flatter and crunchy. A traditional Western tree is wood. And it's heavy. This is a composite one. You know, I could cheapen it and say plastic, but it's not plastic. It's a composite material, so it has some flex in it, which makes the saddle fit better. But what you have in your Western saddle is based upon the width of the bars, with the anatomy of your horse. Narrow semi-quarter horse bars up to draft now, and the leather or synthetic, I'm not going to pick this one up because it weighs about 50 pounds, that has fleece underneath it, or in some cases now a solid pad, but your fitting is based more upon how you pad the saddle. We don't do that quite so much with English saddles. A traditional English tree is a wooden tree. It has, this is called a spring tree because it's got spring steel bars on it, and then it has a solid metal head plate. So if you have a saddle where you start to hear a squeak in it and you can't figure out why, it quite possibly is one of the rivets that starts to go. So if you look at a saddle and you do that to the tree, you'll hear a squeak. That means that the integrity of the head plate has been compromised. If you have a horse, for example, that flips on a saddle, it's not really difficult, not easy, but it's not really difficult to break the spring steel, at which point you can do that and the saddle will actually bow with you. Not all English trees are wood anymore. A lot of those are also composite. You can have a much stronger, this particular one still has spring steel in it, but there are some that are elastomers where they want to have more lateral flex in the tree that will not have this extra steel portion. In all cases with English saddles, the structure that the billet's attached to is nylon webbing that goes all the way across the seat. So you're not stapling it to the tree, it's actually stitched to the nylon. And that's what makes it strong. That's another reason that you need to crawl up in here into these little tiny spaces so that you can get to the stirrup bar. So if this is a locking stirrup bar, which should actually not be locked when you're using the saddle unless you're planning on going up and down hills like that, that this mechanism still works. If it's a curved stirrup bar, that it has not over time or accident bent. And again, if you hear a squeak in here, it's because typically there's a rivet that's starting to get loose. Very important and often forgotten for English or Western saddles that have adjustable trees or changeable gullet trees. The screws that hold this together, unless you put enough Loctite on them that you cannot ever change your saddle with again, should be checked periodically when you are cleaning your tack. It's another thing to make sure that its integrity is sound. If it's a screw, make sure that it's tight. You would be surprised by the number of used saddles I see that I end up taking apart that are perhaps missing a screw altogether and have been that way for years. according to the people that bring them to me, and said, "Oh, there's nothing to be a screw here." There's obviously never been one there since it was new because nobody checked it. It's like checking the tires on your car. Every once in a while, you have to check the lug nuts. So that is another safety aspect. When we are cleaning things like this, billets, seats of saddles, I strongly recommend the use of conditioner and not oil. If you are going to oil, again, check your manufacturer's warranty. Use it sparingly. Color check if particularly if it's a dark leather. The tanning process in leather has changed so much in the last probably 30 years. All of the colors that we have in leather that you're painstakingly trying to match between this piece and that piece is because there are so many options available. But those leathers there are no cows that are that color, or very few. So when you're taking care of that leather, you need to know how thick the laminate is. If it's calf skin, yes, it might be calf skin, but it's a thinner calf skin. Now, this is boot calf skin, but that's the thickness of it. If you're looking at rawhide, or most leathers that are tanned in the United States are either chrome or cowhide, which means it has a finished surface and an unfinished surface. The unfinished surface is what you oil. The finished surface is what you condition. Particularly if you don't want to change the color of the tack that you're using. If you are trying to change the color, better to have oil with a little bit of dye in it. It is possible to dye leather, but it is painstaking and you really have to know what you're doing. If you have a saddle that has suede on it, part of the mark of losing the nap on the suede is that the saddle is no longer, or chaps, for example, are no longer new. Now, English saddles have, for the most part, gone away from suede knee pads, probably because we could never figure out how to not get oil on them, but that's just my observation. But if you are trying to bring the nap up on a suede brush which is stiff, or, as I say, I found this little tool which I find very easy because it's easy to put in my hand. I can use it very sparingly and gently in a small circular motion, and I can bring the nap up on suede, but I can't totally restore it. I can bring it in new, but that's part of the reason that more working saddle is one that it's kind of its badge of courage that it's been through life. Okay. Other questions? Yes.
What's your opinion of hydrophane? I have lots of
What's my opinion of hydrophane?
Yeah.
I'm not sure that I have an opinion of hydrophane. Hydrophane is an old product. It always smells a little bit like fish to me. That is between the two of an oil and a conditioner. It's liquid, so it's more oil-like. It does not change color, which is good. It does add some water repellency. If you have a new boot, or probably the fenders on a Western saddle, hydrophane, anything with suddenly it just left my head. Waterproofing stuff. It will come. The train will come back, and I'll remember again. To use that in moderation will add to the water repellency of leather, but hydrophane is fine.
Do you think it's a good conditioner? There's a carry it here, and I've used it for years.
Yes, I think it's a good conditioner. Is it in my personal toolkit? No. But no product has been around that long without being a good conditioner. It's not in my toolkit, but that doesn't make it. There are a lot of products that are not in my toolkit. It does not make stuff shiny, and it does not seal it. There are products that specifically are advertised you can clean with one step, and it cleans your saddle and it conditions your saddle and it leaves shine on it. I don't really want to shine on my saddle, If I have anything that has lacquer on it, then you want to shine on it. And then that particular product, which is Leather New, is great for it. I don't want to shine on my leather because I want to have the surface to be a little more eligible for conditioning, so that I can keep the fiber, so I can do more nourishing than sealing. I don't like to, personally with my tack, I don't like to seal stuff. But there are, if it has a more lacquered surface or an embroidered surface on it, then it's great. So it depends a little bit on the kind of tack that you're using. But if you have patent leather on as an accent on your saddle, beware using anything with glycerin in it, because that will dull your patent leather, which is not why you put patent leather on it. You want it to be shiny. So avoid aggressive products on patent leather. Mostly your damp sponge or terry cloth is the best thing to use on patent leather. If you find that it's not as shiny as you want it to be and you want to put some boot polish on it, do not use neutral boot polish. Use a gel that is made for shine.
I don't have any patent leather.
You have no patent leather? I'm so sorry. But generally on traditional tack, hydrophane is fine. And yes, it's a good conditioner. I mean, it's been around since the 1800s. So, but yeah.
When you're talking oil, what are you talking about? What kind of oil to use them?
Okay, very good question. Avoid oils that are that have petroleum distillate products in it, because it's very rough on the sticking. So I use FX leather oil, which does not, it's leather soft is what they call it, but that's an oil conditioner. I use, it's not been ribbon anymore who bought it, Walsh oil, but Walsh oil you have to be careful because it has, I think they do it both ways now, but that one has a little bit of stain in it, so if you want to darken something, that's a good one to use. I know, again, this isn't, I do not use olive oil on my tack, but I know people who use olive oil on their tack.
What about neat's foot?
Neat's foot is, pure neat's foot is fine. But neat's foot is often a compound, and the compound has petroleum distillates in it. So look at the label, and nothing that is petroleum really should be on your leather, because it does shorten the lifespan. Pure neat's foot oil is fine. Like I say, I know people who, I like it in salads, but I know people who use it on their tack, and they like to warm it, and I saw, unfortunately, a light-colored breastplate turned into a piece of bacon because they really liked using olive oil, and so they warmed it up, but they got it a little too hot, and then they put the piece of tack in there, and it was instant bacon. So I try to not get into those outliers, but I'm not going to say it's horrible. Petroleum distillates, bad. Other things that you use that are pure oils, I like to stick with the stuff that's made for leather, but I know people who absolutely swear by it. I also know people who take brand new tack without cleaning it, and they dip it in a 55-gallon drum of oil and then let it drip until it's done, which is a very traditional way of doing it. But that's when the leather was like that stupid saddle, not thin, laminated, colored. So I personally would not do that. I also know people who take new tack and put it in a big Ziploc bag with oil in it and leave it in there for an hour or so. So I'm a very traditional tack cleaner. I like to stay with products that I know, but as long as you clean your tack, you've made me happy. Yeah.
Do some products lose their efficacy too? So that anything that's 10 years old sitting in the closet should be thrown out and start over, or is it?
Only if it has a complicated ingredient list. I mean, there are a lot of products now that are a little trendier because they have like tea tree oil in it, or aloe, or avocado juice, avocado oil. So yeah, for that I would think that there would be a tendency to separate. But glycerin soap, that again must be used in moderation because it's easy to overuse it. Harder to get the excess lather off, tends to dull things, so I don't use as much glycerin soap as I did when that was what we had. If I use glycerin soap, my personal preference is a bar, and then I just wet the bar, and that way I don't get too much product on it. But again, that's when I was a kid. You had a sponge that you wrung out, you dipped the bar, you wiped it once, and then you cleaned your tack. That was when life was easy. Now it's much more complicated because our leathers are more complicated. They're beautiful, but anything that combines colors, brushed versus standard versus patent. As soon as you get into tack like that, you really read the instructions from the manufacturer. Use everything sparingly. Do multiple coats, more elbow grease, less product, and your tack will stay healthy and last a lifetime if you take care of it. Or you can kill it in a year. The option is yours. I do have one request from the retail perspective, and that is if you are sending something into repair, please clean it. I can clean it when you bring it in for repair, but it's going to be more expensive if I have to clean it. But clean it, including the soles. If you are cleaning your show boots, clean the soles every once in a while. Put conditioner on the feet. Never oil on the feet, but you'd be surprised. You gave me that look. You'd be surprised.
No, I'm what?
Oh, oil on a boot?
On a boot.
Yeah, to soften it quickly. That's right up there to me with, I put it in the bathtub. But, you know, it seems to work. Silver, be aware if it's solid silver or plated silver, because plated silver is much more prone to disrepair, especially if you have rust on it. I always keep Q-tips, and I often keep cotton balls in my leather care stuff because I can put a little tiny bit, if it's conditioner, if it's oil, if it's mildew killer, if it's silver that has a pattern in it. In that detail work, better to go small, better to go soft before hard. Those are both my standard rules of leather cleaning. Okay? Yes?
So what do you like to use to actually clean your saddle with?
I like, if I'm going to use glycerin soap, I like this because it does not take, number one, it comes with a sponge, so that's always nice. But it doesn't come off easily, so I'm not tempted to overuse it. But anytime I'm using straight glycerin soap, I do use cleaner right after it. I don't have that product here because it's kind of hard to stand up, but FX has a really nice cream soap, which is pH balanced, and it squeezes out, and I can keep it hung on the tack hook, so it's something that's not in my way. That's a good product. I like Leather Therapy's products. I like Lexol's pH balanced leather cleaner. I don't care if it's solid, cream, or spray, as long as I can apply it in a very small quantity. Yep.
What is your opinion of Murphy's oil soap and lanolin?
All right, I don't want to get in trouble with the company, but I use Murphy's oil soap on my horse trailer, and I don't use it on my leather, even though it says oil soap, and therefore it should be a one-step product. But I'm not, I mean, I'd use it on a saddle pad before I'd use it on my tack, frankly. But that's, it's because if you use it straight, if you use the glop out stuff, then it's really easy to get way too much product on. And if you use the liquid stuff, it tends to be really, really wet. So that saddle knot on its suede could probably take it better than most English tack. Just because it's of its tanning, it's not going to change its color. If you let it dry, it will eventually work its way out. It doesn't leave a lot of residue unless you put too much product on it. But yeah, I know it's for everything, but I like it on my horse trailer. Yep.
Black Rock, talk a little bit about
Okay, Black Rock is an interesting product, which, to be perfectly honest, before Paddock Saddlery became a part of Big D's, I'd never heard of. But it is very popular for particularly colored non-suede leathers. It does clean well. It does not get the surface goopy unless you really slather it on there. And it does leave a relatively acceptable to me, because I'm kind of picky, it will add a little bit of shine, not shine, it will add a sheen to the leather. It's very popular on the western side of boots, which I presume means it does not make anything stretch or change its color. I've used it a couple times. I've not had anything against it. It's not part of my normal kit, but it's a very popular product that does not seem to damage anything, which makes it good for me.
Is it a cleaner conditioner?
If you read the label, yes. Yes, yes, it's a cleaner conditioner. Yeah, well, I suppose it is. It's more cleaner than conditioner, but it's
Okay.
not drying.
Okay.
So that's, if you put too much soap on something, not only does it have an impact on the finish, on the shine, it will make it dull, but it can also be drying. And again, you have to remember with leather that even if it's thin, microscopically it still has fibers in it. This is quite thin, and you don't want to put anything on here that's going to dry out this leather, and you don't want to put anything that's going to seep into this seam. With English saddles, your bad points of entry, if you do too much to a product, is this seam, this seat is stretched and placed on here, and underneath the stitching, there is a seam along the seat. And I'm sure that you have all seen seats that are split. Splitting comes from either over-oiling and making it so soft that the leather tears. It can also come from having it be so dry, again, from the salts of sweat on it, or another of the 7 deadly sins, putting your girth over it. It should never happen to an English saddle. This is very expensive to fix. Underneath this leather and on top of that tree is stretch material. That's what's called gumi, which is the foam underneath, which also does not want to have oil on it ever. So this portion of this saddle, all of the exterior portions, I would use leather conditioner. You asked before about what to do about this one. This particular saddle has a very thin layer of what made this color. So I would fix this saddle if I were going to condition it, which if it's sold, probably someone will ask me to do. I would clean this really well. Another good just dirt cleaner, pH balance. You need a lot of elbow grease. I like Kirk's Castile soap in the bar, not the liquid stuff, the bar. Because it's coconut oil, it cleans well, you have to use your elbow grease, but it doesn't change the color, it doesn't impregnate the fibers, it just does what it's supposed to do, which is clean. So I would clean this with probably 2 or 3 times with Castile soap so that I can open up the pores, and then I would put oil on this. Yeah, here and this surface here. I would not do anything to this because this is sealed and you're never going to get oil to go into this. This is also sealed, you're not going to get oil into this. This is conditioner land. This can be oiled. Not on the billets, that's conditioner. This is, this is good old fashioned. This is grain. It's got an unsealed rough side. Oil could go into this. How do you know if you've put enough oil on an unsealed surface? When you have put light coats of oil on this and you just start to see it start to darken this sealed surface, you know you have reached max. From underneath. Yeah. Always apply it to the unsealed surface because this will just be a frustration. Okay? It is complicated, but it's not complicated. If you have calfskin, grain leather, anything that has grit in its name, then you need to be especially careful with how you take care of it to maintain what you've got. Yeah.
How do you clean a Wintex saddle?
Oh, Wintex are easy. Synthetic saddles are easy. Number 1, hose. Number 2, if it's really dirty because nobody has cleaned it ever, then they make a synthetic surface cleaner. Now that is one case where I do know people who use Murphy's oil soap on it. Take a sponge or a wet towel, spray a little bit on there. I mean, you could, it's kind of a waste, I think, to use pH leather cleaner on it, but yeah, those are easy. And they don't care if you get them overly wet because they'll rot. So, they also have synthetic billets. So again, all you really need to do is wipe it off. Just wipe the dirt off. That's all you have to do with it. Don't waste your expensive leather cleaning products and oils and conditioners on that. It won't, Biophane will not appreciate you. Yep. Last one, because
Talking about splits in leather, you said it's from being too dry, or
I missed the first part of that.
when you talked about leather
Splitting.
splitting.
But it's, okay, it can be two ways. One is you can get it so over conditioned that it's limp, and then it starts to stretch, and when it starts to stretch, then the fibers start to pull apart and it weakens it. The other is it is too dry, or you've used too many not pH balanced products on it, and the fibers actually break. That's when you see splitting, cracking, which are in pretty good shape, so I don't think I can use this as an example. No, well, all right, so you have little tiny surface cracks in here, but this is not, it doesn't go all the way through, it's because it's dirt, frankly. So I would still not, I would be aggressive with my elbow in cleaning this. And I would, after that, put a light coat of conditioner on it. Good people wear gloves when they do this. I am not that good. I like to feel the product into the leather. I like to be able to work it in with my thumb and finger, but good people wear gloves. Okay, we got pretty much all the questions. How many of you are doing part 2? All right, so in part 2, if you grab whatever it is that you've decided to clean, we have stations set up in the back. And before we break for this one, does everyone have a raffle ticket?